Chloe. Sounds like somebody's microphone's on. All right. So again, welcome to the very first Texas Balance of State Continuum of Care General Member Orientation. Thank you for coming today, and we're really glad to have you here. My name is Margaret Hill. I am the Governance Coordinator at Texas Homeless Network. So in this presentation, we will be covering these topics here on the screen. Each topic will be presented by a different staff member of Texas Homeless Network, and we will end the presentation with a time for attendees to ask questions. So please type your questions in the chat and we will answer them at the end. So but just for the purposes of ensuring that we have enough time to get through every section of the presentation. We will not take any questions until the end. So the topics in this presentation are intended to give you kind of a broad overview of the CoC system and Texas Homeless Network's role in that system. So for more information, I do encourage you to check out the CoC program roadmap Prezi slideshow, which is on the HUD website. HUD meaning Housing and Urban Development. It goes into a little more detail than we have time for today, so it will give you a better idea of kind of how all these pieces fit together. I've put this is a screen cap from it, but it's an interactive slideshow. It's pretty cool. And I put a little link here at the bottom for that. So, sorry, hold on just a second. Texas Homeless Network, that's also abbreviated as THN, is a nonprofit organization that coordinates local, national, and advocacy efforts. We also perform data collection research, host an annual conference that is statewide, and we serve as the collaborative applicant for the Texas Balance of State Continuum of Care, which is often abbreviated as TX BoS CoC. The TX BoS CoC assists in the coordination of programs and funding. As the collaborative applicant of the TX BoS CoC, THN is the entity that the CoC has designated to apply for federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, to the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, for CoC planning funds on behalf of the CoC. This funding is then administered by the organizations that receive it. In this role, THN is responsible for helping the CoC to meet its requirements for HUD, plan and operate the CoC, implement coordinated entry, and evaluate CoC performance. So that's a lot of information. We'll get more into that later in the presentation. THN is also the designated HMIS lead agency, meaning we operate the homeless management system on behalf of the CoC. And again, all of that's going to be covered in more detail later in the presentation. So what is a continuum of care? Basically, the CO system was created through the CoC interim rule, which is a federal rule, and it is administered by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. It's intended to be a collaborative way for different organizations within like a geographical area to plan and fund for homeless services. So rather than everyone in the city or county or group of counties working alone to solve homelessness, the CoC system is intended to bring different organizations together to discuss the needs of the community as a whole. And the intent of the CoC system is to make sure that everyone who wants to enter the system can easily access services, that those services are also not duplicated as they move around the system, and that and also towards that, organizations that participate in that system can apply for certain types of funding to help them provide services. And what is balance of state continuum of care, also called a BoS CoC. A BoS CoC is made up of parts of a state that don't have their own CoC program. So most CoCs are going to be centered around cities, counties, groups of counties, areas that are not covered by local CoCs are going to be part of the balance of state CoC. So Texas has one of the biggest balance of states in the country. So you can see from this map, all of these, so Texas has 11 CoCs total. Gosh, it's not working. I was going to have a little arrow pointing out to the orange part, but all of this orange part is the balance of state CoC. So this is what we are here to talk about today, basically. And that's 215 counties out of 254 in the state of Texas. And serving such a large area is really challenging. We serve a lot of different types of populations of people that all have different challenges for the people that are experiencing homelessness in those areas. And creating a system out of those disparate communities can be really challenging. Oh, there it goes. There we go. So as the collaborative applicant of the CoC, Texas Homeless Network, or THN, we strive to have a governance structure for the CoC that's accountable to people that are living and working within the CoC, either working with people experiencing homelessness or seeking services from the homeless system, because they are ultimately the people that are affected by our policies. So to address this, we do have the CoC general membership have the responsibility of electing members of a CoC board annually. And the CoC general membership is basically anybody who lives and works within the geography of the CoC and has an interest in assisting people with who have experienced homelessness and also people experiencing homelessness. So the CoC board, they have the ability also to create, so their responsibility is to make, have the final say about a lot of funding and planning decisions that concern the CoC. And the board also has the ability to create committees. Those are often created on the advice of CoC staff. And those committees consult on specific issues related to the CoC. And CoC general members can serve on those committees, which can give people a greater say in how the CoC operates. On the local level, governance is performed by local homeless coalitions and also coordinated entry planning entities. And that's all I had to say about that for you today. Thank you for letting me speak. If you need to reach out to me, my email address is here, margaret@thn.org, and I will let our next speaker start presenting. That is going to be Mary Stalkey.
Hi, everyone. As Margaret said, I'm Mary Stalkey. I am the Director of Engagement for the Texas Balance of State CoC, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about terminology and concepts. We know that doing this CoC level work, we have a lot of acronyms, a lot of concepts. It's kind of a world unto itself, and so we wanted to give you an acronym list and terms that are also don't have an acronym. We've got that listed in the documents pod, so you can download that and have that for your reference. Those are in alphabetical order, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about clustering those concepts by category. And so the way that the CoC is organized, as some of what Margaret said, we are called a continuum of care for homeless assistance. Our particular one is called the Texas Balance of State Continuum of Care, which, as Margaret showed you, are all those counties in orange on the map. And we're guided by a federal program called HUD Continuum of Care Program, or CoC program. And that is guided by other legislation called the Homeless Emergency and Rapid Transition to Housing, or HARTH Act, which was passed in 2009. So that's a little bit of the structure as far as continuum of care goes. Then there are certain groups that we work with very closely. As I mentioned, the Continuum of Care program is a program of the federal department, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. And we also work with the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness, and that's HUD plus a number of other federal agencies that work together to address homelessness, combining policies, in some cases combining programs. And then we have a state level group that's very similar, the Texas Interagency Council for the Homeless, or TICH, and those are state agencies that work together to address homelessness. And finally, as Margaret mentioned, local homeless coalitions. Those are our partners on the ground in communities across the balance of state CoC that do planning and service delivery, and they administer shelter and they operate housing for people in the local level. And so we kind of have a dual structure here in our balance of state CoC, of CoC level work and then local level work. So we're going to be talking to you mostly today about the CoC level work, but we know there's a lot of local work going on around the CoC. We've got some definitions of homeless and chronically homeless, and those are the HUD definitions. It's a big deal to know the exact definitions, particularly if you're running a HUD-funded program, because the people that are going to be eligible for that program must meet that HUD definition of homeless. So we've got that there for you. Also, we have housing interventions or homeless services interventions, everything from homelessness prevention to street outreach, diversion, emergency shelter, transitional housing, rapid rehousing, and permanent supportive housing. And you can read more about those definitions. Again, just kind of wanted to break things into categories for you. And finally, there's some information about the activities that our CoC conducts. Lots of planning, applying for CoC program funds from HUD, helping with conducting the point-in-time count and the housing inventory, operating the Homeless Management Information System, or HMIS, and helping to administer coordinated entry. So all of those terms are on the document, and you will be hearing more about a lot of them during the presentation today. And we'll have questions at the end, but always, if you want to reach out, you can contact me, and if I'm not the right person or the best person to talk to you about something, I will certainly get you to the right person. I'm, again, Mary Stalkey, mary@thn.org. Right, and I will pass it off to Jen to talk about local homeless coalitions.
Hi everyone, I'm Jen Beardsley and I'm the local homeless coalition coordinator with Texas Homeless Network. And as Mary just said, today I'm going to discuss local homeless coalitions, which are the local planning groups within the balance of state continuum of care. All right. So as Margaret said earlier, the balance of state CoC covers the largest area in Texas, 215 counties, which is everything in orange on this map. So when we say, quote, the CoC, we're talking about this big orange area. All right, and because planning to address homelessness needs to be tailored to what's happening at the ground level with the resources that are available locally, We partner with 31 local homeless coalitions around the balance of state to do that local planning, data collection, and networking. So these local planning groups work to gain essentially a bird's eye view of homelessness and the local resources available to help get folks out of homelessness as quickly as possible. All right. So to reiterate, local homeless coalitions are networks that address homelessness through a process called collective impact in their designated area. And their designated area can be a city, a county, or a cluster of counties, whichever they think is best locally. And collective impact is essentially a structured way of bringing people together to advance social change. This network of community members, organizations, and different institutions advance equity by learning together. They align goals and they integrate their actions or collaborate to achieve that change. All right. So when coalition members come together to collaborate and discuss homelessness in their community as an ecosystem, they're essentially taking off their agency hats to analyze community data and discuss how the resources available affect that ecosystem, and they discuss how they can collaborate to change that ecosystem, right? And so these some activities that local homeless coalition can do include local networking. They do local street outreach to people experiencing homelessness, and that can either be done at the coalition level by the coalition or by member agencies within the coalition. But they also come together to analyze the local data and do planning, and do things such as the point in time count, which is going to be discussed next. They analyze local housing, see what's available, see what services are available, maybe see what gaps exist, and other things like definitely community education and local advocacy, like working with their local council of government or their city council to direct resources where they're needed. Okay. So one important thing to remember when working with these groups is that group energy naturally ebbs and flows. So it's important not to get discouraged when things slow down from time to time. This is completely normal, especially since most of the time the members are wearing many hats in their communities, and local homeless coalitions consist completely of volunteers. So making sure you have that patience for yourself and with your partners is really important. All right. We do have a few requirements for local homeless coalitions. We ask that they appoint a liaison who will serve as a contact person with us. We ask that they meet at least quarterly or 4 times per year. And if you have things like committees, like a steering committee, I would advise meeting more frequently than that. But as a general membership, you can meet at least quarterly. We ask that folks take minutes and attendance at each meeting and send them our way once they're finalized. Local homeless coalitions are required to conduct the annual point in time count, which is the count of the number of persons experiencing homelessness in your community. We ask that they attend Continuum of Care general meetings, which happen every even month. And we have more information later on about that. And if your area has federally funded projects, we do have additional requirements, and that link I see has turned blue, so you can't see it, but it is in the PowerPoint if you'd like to visit the local homeless coalition page. This is how you can get that to learn more about local homeless coalitions on our website. And then if you'd like to see who your local homeless coalition is in your area, you can click on this link to get there. I'm Jen Beardsley, and thank you so much. And with that, I will pass it on to Alex.
All right. Hello, all, and welcome to the point in time count section of our CoC orientation. My name is Alex Paredes. I use she, her pronouns. I am the data coordinator here at THN, and I am your go-to person when it comes to everything PIT related. All right, so let's go ahead and get going. So let's talk a little bit about what the PIT count is. So the PIT count is essentially a federally mandated large-scale data gathering initiative that surveys individuals and families experiencing homelessness that is conducted annually across the balance of state CoC. We conduct this survey on one night in the last 10 nights of January, which are usually the coolest nights of the year. So in this comprehensive survey, we want to paint a picture of people who experience homelessness within our geography. So we do this by gathering qualitative data, meaning that we're gathering people's demographics, how long they've been homeless, chronic conditions that affect their ability to acquire and maintain housing, and several other factors that contribute to homelessness. And we're also gathering quantitative data by determining, again, the number of people experiencing homelessness within our geography. So we're doing a count of both sheltered and unsheltered people experiencing homelessness, sheltered meaning people in emergency shelters and transitional housing, and unsheltered people meaning people maybe living on the streets, people living on the sidewalks, perhaps in a homeless encampment and other places not meant for human habitation. All right, so let's move on to how we accomplish this count. So like we've talked about already, our CoC has a huge geography that covers over 200 counties. And because of this, we need many dedicated and hardworking individuals to cover this area and survey people experiencing homelessness. So each region or county typically has a PIT lead that is in charge of training volunteers and shelters to gather the data. So the PIT lead could be you, it could be someone within your organization, or perhaps even a community leader or someone who works at a shelter. So the PIT lead coordinates the data gathering within the region or county for both sheltered and unsheltered individuals. So my role here as the data coordinator is to train our PIT leads so that they're able to train these volunteers and be fully prepared for the night of the count. I also coordinate with PIT leads so that they have everything that they need to complete the count. Be it understanding our surveying tool, we use an application called Counting Us to gather our data. We can also use paper surveys, but we try not to do that. We try to mainly use our app. I train people on how to accurately gather the data in a comprehensive manner that also respects the humanity of our respondents and coordinating volunteer recruitment as well. So for the shelter count, we typically rely on shelter staff to gather the data for those individuals in shelter. And for the unsheltered count, we rely on PIT leads to train volunteers from their communities on how to properly and comprehensively gather data of folks who are unsheltered on the night of the count. Now there's a great amount of variation since we have such a large geography. Sometimes we do have volunteers go out to shelters, and sometimes shelter staff actually do go out and survey individuals who are unsheltered. So it's really depending on your geography. And this is part of my job here as the data coordinator to make sure that we coordinate with our PIT leads so that they have everything they need and their volunteers are properly trained to go out there and gather data. All right, so let's move on to why we conduct the PIT count. So there are four main reasons that we conduct the PIT count that I represented here in this graphic. So we conduct it for awareness, to advocate to local governments, and to raise community awareness of homelessness. Another really important one is to understand the extent of homelessness by identifying the trends in homelessness over time and the characteristics of those experiencing homelessness locally. By gathering that quantitative and qualitative data, we can understand the extent. So we can also do it to secure funding, as the PIT count can be used for eligibility for CoC and ESG federal funding. I think that Jim and Hope are going to talk about that a little bit next. So you can also use it to advocate for local or private government funds to aid towards your efforts to end homelessness within your geography. And finally, and this is one of the most important ones for me, it's for engagement, as the PIT count allows us to develop personal relationships with those experiencing homelessness and create a sense of responsibility with various stakeholders. So we're going out there and we're having conversations and building those connections with people who experience homelessness within our area. So, all righty. So that wraps up my little section on the point in time count. So if you have any general questions or questions about the upcoming 2023 PIT count, perhaps you want to expand coverage, or you want to get your area involved in the count and it hasn't been involved in the past, you can always email me at alex@thn.org and I will be in touch with you. Thank you very much. I'll go ahead and pass it off to our next presenters, Hope and Jim.
Change of schedule is actually going to be me, so thanks, Alex. Hello, everybody. My name is Gabrielle Garcia. I'm the training coordinator here at the Texas Homeless Network. My pronouns are she, her, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about HMIS and some of the many benefits of joining the Texas Balance of State CoC HMIS system. So what is HMIS? Oh my goodness, sorry about that. HMIS stands for Homeless Management Information System, and it is a computerized data collection tool specifically designed to capture client-level information over time. It collects information on the characteristics and the service needs of individuals and families experiencing homelessness, as well as the services provided to those families. So what are some of the benefits for providers? When you make decisions about how your program should operate, you want to know what you're basing those decisions off of supporting data. HMIS provides a way for agencies to assess program performance, allowing you to see what's working and what needs improvement. Another benefit for providers is our HMIS not only has the reports HUD requires, but also dozens of reports that focus on client demographics, services, referrals, and data quality. These reports can be utilized regardless of funding to get a sense of the population that you serve. Another benefit for providers is if a client has accessed multiple programs and services from your agency, you'll be able to see that on the client's HMIS dashboard. If other providers in your community also utilize HMIS, you'll be able to tell if the client has been served by other agencies. This helps the process of coordinating services. And lastly, our HMIS provides agencies with tools to gauge and report on client outcomes and larger agency-wide outcomes, answering questions such as how long was the client in your program, where did they end up, what services did they receive, and did they reach their goals? Did your agency meet its own housing goals? Some benefits for communities are informing systems design and policy decisions. By utilizing data to identify service gaps in our communities, we can better inform local and national policymakers. An additional benefit for communities is identifying service gaps. HMIS makes it easy for administrators to find service gaps in the data by recording unmet needs, identifying returns to homelessness, and viewing waiting lists for permanent housing programs in your community. Another benefit for communities is understanding the extent of homelessness. HMIS creates an environment where community-level data can be analyzed and interpreted, giving an important opportunity for system-wide policy decisions. And additionally, the more participants in HMIS creates a clearer and fuller picture of what's truly happening within our CoC. And another benefit for communities is unduplicated client counts. HMIS client-level data is consistently audited for accuracy. Our HMIS administrators are able to thoroughly comb through the system to ensure data accuracy, as well as verify an unduplicated count of clients accessing services in the community. And personally, my most important benefits are for our clients. So HMIS can provide coordinated case management. It provides a way for case managers within different programs or agencies to see what assessments, services, and referrals a client has received. An additional benefit for clients is streamlined referrals. As a caseworker, you can see when a referral was made, to where, and for what, as well as see the status and result of the referral. And for referrals to providers that also use HMIS, the referral is digital and instantaneous, meaning that the client doesn't need to personally keep track of their referrals. Another benefit for clients is a decrease of duplicate intakes and assessments. When clients are entered into the HMIS system, their basic demographic information is saved to their personal record, and users can see when a client already exists within the system. This cuts down on potential duplication of clients, intakes, and assessments, which leads into another benefit for clients is trauma-informed client-centered service. HMIS assists assessors in creating a trauma-informed space for clients who do not have to tell their story over and over again. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at gabrielle@thn.org. You can also ask questions during the Q&A at the end of the orientation. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm going to pass it off to Hope Rogers and Jim Ward.
Thanks, Gabby. Hey, y'all. My name is Hope Rogers. I am the CoC Performance Manager with Texas Homeless Network. hoping that y'all can hear me okay, assuming someone will let me know if not. But I'm here to talk today about federal funding and some of the preparations that come along with that. And joined today by Jim Ward, who will be introducing himself a little bit later in this presentation. So we have a ton of content to cover in a very short amount of time, but our hope for you today is to gain a high-level understanding of the role of federal funding in housing crisis response systems, an overview of the most common housing interventions, the types of fundings, as well as some considerations and recommended prerequisites before pursuing federal funds. So jumping right in, even if you're unfamiliar with federal funding specifically, I don't think it's any secret how important funding can be in a local housing crisis response system, especially considering that often the goal of funding is to create opportunities within a system where households experiencing homelessness or who are at risk of experiencing homelessness can be quickly connected to resources that meet their needs, from access to prevention to intervention. And I think it's also important to note that funding can touch all parts of the housing crisis response system. So knowing that funding can touch all parts and support multiple types of housing interventions, I wanted to just quickly touch on some of the most common types of housing interventions, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. One being rapid rehousing, which is short to medium term housing subsidy and wraparound services. So rental and utility assistance coupled with case management, referrals, as well as financial assistance for supportive services that often include things like childcare, legal services, connection to healthcare, and things like that. Another common type of housing intervention is permanent supportive housing. This is non-time limited housing assistance and wraparound services. So the same wraparound services included in rapid rehousing, but the intervention is not limited to any specific time frame. This is often for folks who are experiencing chronic homelessness, which is defined as long-term homelessness coupled with a disabling condition. One of the, still a common type, but not as common, as a joint transitional housing and rapid rehousing projects. This project type combines both transitional and rapid rehousing components into a single project where participants can benefit from components. And lastly is homelessness prevention, which I think most folks are familiar with. This often looks like rental or utility assistance to prevent someone from experiencing homelessness. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Jim to talk about the types of funding.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Ward. I'm the Director of Planning here at Texas Homeless Network, and my work is almost exclusively in the Balance of State Continuum of Care. I'm going to talk to you kind of briefly about the types of funding that you might encounter in your community. Not every community in the Balance of State has access to all the funding on your screen here, but these are more so the more common types. I will also say that with the federal government's coronavirus response, there are additional funding types that are not listed on this slide that may be present in your community that can be used to address homelessness. But the most common type that we encounter regularly is the Continuum of Care program and the Emergency Solutions Grant program. Both of these funding streams are allocated through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. The Continuum of Care is allocated on an annual basis through a competitive process that we will be talking more about on the 24th. I'm going to just do a little quick shameless plug for another webinar that we can put the registration details in the chat a little bit later. But that is a competition that THN runs on behalf of the Continuum of Care. Again, we'll learn all you want to know about the Continuum of Care program on the 24th. But then the Emergency Solutions Grant program is a really important one that can fund things like homelessness prevention and street outreach and emergency shelter. If you have questions about any of these funding types, you're welcome to reach out. My contact and Hope's contact will be on this last slide. But before you go down that road, we just wanted to talk a little bit about considerations for when a community or when an organization is thinking about applying for federal funding, it's really important to consider the capacity of the local crisis response system, everything from the homeless coalition to the local coordinated entry system, point in time count, housing inventory count, participation, and some continuity there. You know, you want to see if you can paint that picture over time of the need that exists in the community. You also want to have access to key change agents within the community. Not to say that personalities are everything, but having some strong change agents in your community to drive the community towards an organized response is really, really important. The other thing that I wanted to talk about briefly is the capacity of applicants, right? So that's really important. Administering federal funding requires a lot of things of an organization that are not necessarily always funded. For example, organizations are expected to match generally between 25 and 100% of their federal award on an annual basis. That's not just resources that are available to an organization. Those are resources leveraged towards that project during the grant period. Compliance with federal rules is really, really, really important with federal funding. There are a variety of regulations that govern all of the housing programs that you're talking about. And it's really important that folks understand and can implement policies and procedures that are compliant. And then the other thing that I wanted to bring forward is the unfunded requirements. I kind of touched on that, but HUD would expect that folks participate in the point in time count, the housing inventory count. There are grant closeout activities that happen after the grant period is closed and you're no longer eligible for reimbursement. But that's another good point. All of these programs work on a reimbursement basis, right? So there needs to be operating capital at the organization or have access to operating capital to be able to administer these programs. So we wanted to talk briefly about what someone should consider before digging into federal funding, right? It's really important to gather data about the problem that you're hoping to solve, right? It doesn't do your community a whole lot of good to develop a project for a specific subpopulation if the real need in your community is just kind of like a generalized response. Not to say that that wouldn't benefit folks in that subpopulation, but you just want to have data to support how you're going about your project design. That includes that robust data around the housing inventory count. If you know of projects in your community that are not participating in the housing inventory count, get with Alex and we can help get you all set up to make sure that you have the most robust system and data available to you. I think the other thing that we wanted to touch on is establishing that community support and buy-in. I touched on the key change agents, but it's really a good time to establish and fine-tune the local homeless coalition, ensure that you have a broad stakeholder base of coalition partners. And then again, I can't emphasize it enough that buy-in from local change agents and community leaders, your elected officials, your community development department, church officials and spiritual leaders in your community. All that's really, really, really important before you kind of go down this road of administering federal funding. And with that, I'm going to stop talking there. My contact information is here on the slide for you, jim@thn.org. HOPE is a great resource available to you, hope@thn.org. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Mary.
All right. Hello again. I am the Director of Engagement for the CoC, and so I'm talking to you about getting involved. So what kind of opportunities do you have to get involved? Well, you may be thinking, am I a member of the CoC or am I not? And so we want to make sure you know that anyone who works or lives in the CoC's geographic area, those orange counties on the map, including all housing and homeless services projects, are considered to be members of the CoC. So again, our membership is huge because all you have to do is live or work in the CoC. So we don't have any membership dues or requirements to become a CoC member. And that means we have what's called an open invitation process. So people may join at any time. Some CoCs have things like, membership dues or other kinds of requirements that allow them to be an official member with voting privileges. But again, we extend that to everyone in the CoC and invite them to participate. Just one note, it is a little bit confusing that the Texas Balance of State CoC, everyone in the CoC is a member, and that's different from being a member of Texas Homeless Network, or THN. So THN membership requires a separate sign up and donation process. And I'm also seeing that my URL, it turned blue, so you can't see it on the background, but you'll be able to see it in the PowerPoint presentation if you download it. But again, just know you don't have to do anything to be a member of the CoC, and we welcome anyone to participate. All right. Oh no, all of my links, they were in green on my version, but now they're not showing up on this version. I'm so sorry about that.
Mary, I'm gonna go and post them all in the chat for you so people know what it's supposed to be.
So apologize for that. I thought we had checked out this presentation. So maybe it's something about the way it's showing on the screen that we didn't catch in PowerPoint. So on the CoC level, different ways that you can participate are running for a seat on the CoC board. As Margaret said, that's the policy-making body that acts on behalf of the CoC, and half of those members are elected every year. We will be having board elections in August, so we'll be taking nominations later this month. Also, you can participate on a CoC committee. We have a number of committees that meet to focus on various aspects of what the CoC does. So for example, we've got a data committee, we've got a strategic planning committee, a victim services provider committee. So the link on the slide will send you to our committees page on the website where you can learn more. We also have opportunities for members to give comment on policies that are being proposed to be either developed or revised. So, periodically we will alert you to say that there are policies being proposed, and you can go to our online portal and add your comments. And finally, you can attend an orientation webinar like you're doing today. Also on the local level, you can get involved with your local homeless coalition, like Jen was talking about. We've got more than 30, around 30 across the CoC right now, but there are a number of communities that don't have one. So if you're interested in developing one in your community, Jen can work with you on that process. And then finally, through THN itself, kind of the other part of what THN does that is support all 11 CoCs in Texas. And they've got a couple of opportunities. There's a THN advocates group. So if you're interested in staying on top of state and federal policies and what's happening around homelessness and affordable housing, you might be interested in joining the THN advocates. Then also anyone is welcome to attend our Texas Conference on Ending Homelessness. We haven't had it for the past couple of years because of COVID, but this year we will be having it from September 28th through 30th in Austin. And the link in the PowerPoint will take you to that page on our website. All right. And then finally, if you just want to kind of stay informed, but don't have time to participate in a committee or be a part of the advocates group, you can sign up for our newsletter. We've got the subscription link there. Also, we have CoC general membership meetings, which is at the top bullet here. Those are held every 2 months, and they're by webinar, so you don't have to travel anywhere. Just like today, we're doing the webinar. We do our general membership meetings that way so that a lot of people can participate. Finally, THN has a website with a large section that covers balance of state activities. You can check that out. And we're on social media. You'll see I put a copy of the icon there from our website. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. If you want to keep up with us in that way, we certainly invite you to do that. Just any way that you want to participate. I guess one thing I didn't specifically mention is you don't have to run for a seat on the board to be eligible to vote for board members. So keep your eyes open in our newsletter and on our website for opportunities to vote for board members and even occasionally committee members. So all kinds of ways that you can get involved with the CoC. All right, again, there's my contact information, mary@thn.org. And now I will turn it over to Margaret to wrap up our presentation for today.
All right, thank you, Mary. I was trying to keep up with all the links, but definitely if I missed any, or if you missed any, you're welcome to download the presentation. They should be working in there. All right. So this is our THN staff. This is everybody we have on staff. We have grown quite a lot in the last couple of years, so I have 2 full slides. And I believe we have a couple new people also that have just joined us that I did not get a chance to put on here. So you can check out our website. That does have our full staff listing on there. This is an org chart of those same people, and a lot of our staff is dedicated to the Texas balance of state. All of the people here within this circle are balance of state staff. Our staff has 4 teams: planning, data, engagement, and systems change. Planning deals with CoC program funding, and it also works in coordination with the Texas Department of Housing and Community, TDHCA. Sorry, I forgot what the A stands for. And other funders like HUD on some other of our funds. Data deals with HMIS training and assistance. Engagement deals with local homeless coalitions, CoC governance, and consolidated planning. And the systems change team works with developing coordinated entry and the PID count. If you need some information about specific topics, I have listed some more general kind of email addresses for parts of the different teams. And you can also reach out to individual people on our team. Our email addresses are just our first name @thn.org. So for example, I am Margaret @thn.org. And you can reach out to me if you have any questions about anything. It is 2:51, so it is time for us to do a little short 10-minute question and answer session. Let's see what we have.
Margaret, the only one that came in so far was from Rosie asking about when the registration for the conference is going to be opening, and next week is the goal for that.
Okay. I think that was the one link that I did not get put in from Mary's presentation. So I'm not actually sure where that is. Maybe because it's not open yet. So I guess look out for that on our website. And if you are subscribed to our newsletter, it should be in there as well. Did anybody have any other questions? Oh, there, Sam. Sam just put in the link to the conference. Andrea said being.
Awesome.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
No. I was just saying Andrea's comment is awesome. That was the hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is Mary again. We're so excited to see how many people joined us today, and it's a really good mix of people who have been with THN and the Balance of State CoC for many, many years, and all the way to people who are very new to us, including some of our new staff. So we hope that this presentation was useful for you, no matter what your role is.
Yeah, Jennifer, I think you're talking about the CoC program competition, and the answer to that question is yes. We are hosting an interest webinar on June 24th. That's Friday, so next Friday at 10 a.m. The registration link was put in the chat, but we can put it again so it's kind of anchored down at the bottom. But that is, thank you, Craig. That will kind of signal the start of the 2022 CoC program competition. If you have specific questions before the 24th, you're welcome to reach out to Hope or I, and we can try to get you pointed in the right direction. But yeah, really excited to get that process going.
This is Mary again. If you also have any comments for us about what was especially helpful or information that we didn't cover that you think would be helpful, since this is our very first time giving this orientation, we wanted to make sure that we are meeting what it is you're looking for. And Margaret, I didn't mean to steal your thunder. You might have already been planning to say that.
Oh no, that's okay. I think we're pretty much done with questions. Yeah, if you a lot of y'all filled out the pre-meeting survey, and we just want to get a read on how people are feeling after the meeting. And even if you didn't fill out the pre-meeting survey, we still want to know what you thought, so that we can improve and provide people with the information that they need to understand what we're doing. So I just put a link in the chat for the post-meeting survey. If you get a chance to fill that out, that would be great. It would help us out a lot. Oh, and I think Adobe will also send you an additional survey, which is different from the post-meeting survey that I just put the link there for. So just know those are two different things. All right. Well, yeah, I guess if we don't have any other questions, did any staff members want to have any last words before we go?
I mean, I'm, I don't like awkward silence, so I'll always say something. I'm just really, really happy that that folks found this interesting, and I would just echo what Margaret said. We want this to be useful. Like, we're doing this for the Balance of State general members. So if there's something that you think would be more helpful for us to cover, or something that we didn't cover, or if you just, any thought that you have is valuable about this. So we really, really appreciate it. I see a lot of names that I recognize and a lot of names that I don't. We want to hear from everybody. So the hope is that we can, potentially make this a regular offering. And to do that, we just need to know what y'all need. So that's all. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank y'all. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.